Okay, so really the big main word for Civil 3D 26 that really jumps out is speed. This software is faster. And this is really a big part of this is things that they've done with base AutoCAD for opening files, attaching XRES faster, saving is faster, but then specifically within Civil 3D, contours display way faster. You know that bar that runs along the bottom? Get rid of that. Okay. Or rebuilding corridors. Okay. And then when we get down into besides just the speed, some of the other things they've done, to me, one of the huge ones is ability to, when you're using data shortcuts and then you're referencing surfaces in, well, you may have gotten your surface from a large data source. Well, you can now data reference just a part of that if you want, like I've done here. This goes from a 6 million point surface down to a couple 100,000 or 24,000 points. Anyway, I'll show you how to do that. I'll introduce the model viewer, which is a new way to view your Civil 3D objects. You still have the object viewer, which there are certain things about it that I like quite a bit better than the model viewer, but there's a couple of nice features in the model viewer that I want to point out as well. Okay, there's more of that. And then we'll talk about the different ESRI maps that are now available in 2026. Used to be we had Bing maps. Now we have ESRI maps as well as the Bing maps. So you have a choice. And if you like the look of one over the other, I guess that's your pick. Also, there's a couple of tech previews that are in the software now. They're really hoping for feedback, I will tell you, that do things like automate the creation of pawns, which is really fast and easy, as well as creating channels, which is fast and easy too. The underground storage, I don't totally understand. Maybe one of you engineers can explain that to me. Okay, so I'm going to switch here, get rid of the PowerPoint, put that to Civil 3D, and I'm going to open up this largish drawing that I call OG surface. So what I did is I went to the National Map Viewer. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that, but I'm sure you're familiar with the USGS. Okay, they host this thing called the National Map Viewer, where you can go download public data. It can be terrain data like I did here, which is a GeoTIFF, so it's a grid surface. Okay, but then I take and make a tin surface and add that to the tin surface, which I have. So it looks like there's 6,100,955 points in that surface. Well, that might be a bear to carry that around when I'm just going to be working instead of this whole big surface area. I'm just going to be working down in here near the Spring Creek Reservoir. So I want less surface. Okay, so now I have connected to my project. And here's that OG surface, what I would do from here if I didn't have it in the project. Let me remove it real quick. Okay, so I need to create a data shortcut of this OG surface, right? Go to Manage. Here's Create Data Shortcuts. There's that OG surface. So I basically have added that to my project. Okay. Now you see I went in and I drew a boundary myself. I just did a rectangle and I filleted the corners to get some kind of a site that I want. I'm going to use this to clip this surface as I reference it into a new drawing. So I'll leave this drawing open, but make sure it's saved. Okay. Create a new drawing. Do a quick setup. Okay. Make sure I'm on the same project. Yes, that looks good. So here's that surface. So now when I go to create reference, I'm going to see this new option, reference part of the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, let's take that object here, copy it to the clipboard, come back over here, paste that to its original coordinates, and then zoom extends. Okay, right? So now that I have that here in this drawing, that makes it real easy to reference the OG surface, reference part of that surface, pick the boundary, and now I have this. Those are 2-foot contours. If I turn those on that 6 million point surface, that might take a day or two. So if I look at the properties of this surface, that's 24,248 points. So much smaller to carry around. Easier, you know, if I'm doing profiles or whatever, cross sections, it's holding all those data. It's faster if you have lower, smaller data set. Okay, excuse me. Let's talk about this 3D model viewer. This is something new. I think I have a Okay, so the model viewer is for viewing civil 3D objects. So I have some hatches here that I've added and I've put them at the correct elevations, but they're not going to show up in the model viewer. They would show up or will show up in the object viewer, which you may already be familiar with. So what you do is you take an object, whichever I apparently have 2 tin surfaces, one probably includes the ditch there, and add to model viewer. I guess it would help to rebuild the surface, wouldn't it? Add to model viewer. Wow. I know I can object viewer it, right? Oh, you know what? Surface style. There we go. So I take this, add to model viewer. There's my surface. I've got the road in it, right? So now what's big difference here between the model viewer and object viewer is I can now take the model viewer, move it over to my other monitor. It's still live. I can work with other objects. For example, I can take this corridor, add that to the model viewer. And now in the model viewer, I'll drag it back. Whoops, got the wrong item there. Okay, now I have the corridor object in here. Now there's some settings here for the visual style. They're not quite as delicate as what we have in regular AutoCAD and in the object viewer. So don't expect too much. But this is kind of cool here. Being able to show the surfaces rendered in the colors from the code set style within when you see the corridors. This is where you can set the various visual styles. So there's not a, you don't have, for example, realistic. You have shaded with edges or shaded. I think with edges looks better. And I don't know why those colors are changing there, but this show corridor feature lines, this is talking about the feature lines running longitudinally along what you're seeing here. So like along the top face of curb would be a feature line, etc. So that's what this is telling you. So you can see those maybe colored in a little better. Okay. Other tech previews, there's some support for gravity pipes as you can, I don't have to read all those to you, but there's some other support that's being added to this. I'm sure there's going to be other changes, as people start using it and making requests. Now it's real easy to take and update your screen to match this view. I can hit set view, and then here in AutoCAD, so now I have the control over lots and lots of different visual styles. Here's realistic. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. Showed you that. Bear with me a sec. Okay, also then we have the ESRI maps. This is new in this version. I go to geolocation, just so long as I have my drawing set up, right? And let me go to 2D wireframe style. Just as long as my drawing is set up, a coordinate system assigned, then I can just go here and turn on whichever map type I want. Let's look at the ESRI imagery. And it looks like this. Pretty clear. There's also going to be roads. There's OpenStreetMap. Okay. I want to see a couple more. I can go like, here's what the Bing aerial looks like, and that's what you would possibly compare to the ESRI imagery, they're calling it. All right, let me look here. Yeah, and then I want to show you a couple of things on a couple of other tech previews, but that may interest you um, right now. Okay. Here, if you look on your Home tab, you're going to notice a couple of new tools here on Create Design Panel, which I'm sure you're used to using, when you create an alignment, etc. But now you'll have pond, underground storage, and channels. So let's say, for example, I want to put a pond in here. I want this feature line to become a pond. So we'll do pond from object. If you do create pond, you have to go pick them. So pond from object. Pick the object. Notice you have an option. If that's part of an XREF, there's an option to say, oh, I'm picking this from an external reference drawing. But anyway, I'm just going to pick it. It's native here. All right, what are we going to call it? How deep is it? What are the side slopes? What's the top elevation? How much freeboard if you're using freeboard? Okay, and I'm ready to go. I say okay. And that creates this. Now I want to turn that into something of a surface model, right? I can create feature lines from the pond. Wait, let me show you one thing first. These ponds, you'll notice special grips. So if I wanted to change it, move it up or down, I could give it a new elevation. Or if I want to just move the whole thing, just pick this square grip in the center. Okay. All right, so let's extract those feature lines. Okay, style, yep. Now this, if I do a dynamic link to the pond, then my final surface can update as I continue to tweak the pond. Okay. And I'm good to go. Okay. So now I have feature line that I can add to. Notice they don't have grips. That's because of that dynamic link that we said, yes, maintain that dynamic link. That's why there's no grips on these. But so now let's add these to a surface. So I have this surface called EG1. Create a surface, and I'll call it EG1 with pond. Okay, so take EG1 with pond and paste, edit, paste, EG1. Okay, so now EG1, I want to say your node display. Okay, so this is now EG1 with pond. So all I have to do is go here, feature line, add to surface as break line, e.g. one with pond, okay. And if I want to supplement, I'm not going to worry about it because that's already been done on that feature line. You saw it had a bunch of elevation points as well as vertices. Okay, so now I have model viewer with a nice little pond in it. I think you'd probably want to maybe do a break line across there or something, or an infill. Let me try that. Nah, not going to work. Okay. So let's add a channel as well, which I drew a feature line over here where I want the channel to run. Okay. So you can do that here. Here's channel, create channel. What do you want to call it? Style. This is really just what it looks like. You have a baseline. Here, go to, okay, you have baseline, and then you have the longitudinal lines or the offsets to the baseline. Okay, so do you want those on? I do. And black is fine. Okay, let's pick the feature line that we're trying to use as a drainage or as a channel here. And I'll pick that. And I'll say, okay, run it. So here's a channel. It has properties, and part of those properties is this section tab. And this is where they make it super easy to adjust the values, you know, your bottom width, your side slope, etc. Let's go to 3:1. Let's go to depth of 4 feet and a bottom width of 6 feet. Here, we'll really make it odd. There we go. Now, if you want that to become part of your surface, what you have to do is explode it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it this way. Isolate that object. Okay. Because I can't just add it as a break line here. So if I explode this, okay, then I have all these lines it makes. So if it makes a block, I have to explode again. You're probably familiar with that in Civil 3. So here I have several line objects. So I'm going to do just a join command. And that way I can just put a window around all those and it'll make 5 separate 3D polylines for me. So then I can add those to the surface as break lines. I'll just put them in this surface. I could have done it as lines, but I prefer to have polylines. You know, I'm not sure if you know it, but you can add 3D lines as break lines. But then you have, 30 lines instead of one polyline. And let's unhide. Okay, so now I have this surface. This is in the regular object viewer here. And model viewer. Okay, so that's we're pretty close to being on time here, it looks like. And give me a chance to go back through and remind you what we talked about. Speed, big time. That's a big deal, I think. I've been using this since it came out. And working with surfaces is way nicer. And of course, just opening drawings. So the data reference pieces from large surfaces that you have in your project. Just another picture for that same topic. We introduced the model viewer, showed the different corridor options for model viewer, how to get to the visual styles. There's another example. Went through the different ESRI maps that are available now and talked about the ponds and channels. So that's what I have to say. How about you all?